Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the ICPD Global Dialogue on Technology. Yay! My name is Stephanie Filion. I'm a UN correspondent. I cover a lot of women's rights and women in politics, so I'm very excited to be here with you this morning. And 3 decades ago, global leaders convened in Cairo and committed to prioritizing sexual and reproductive rights as central to sustainable development. So today, we're here to celebrate the strides made in advancing women's rights, but also to recognize the role that technology plays in advancing those rights, and of course, discussing the challenges and the risks that they can also pose for everyone. And today, we're very lucky to have with us a very diverse panel that will take us all over the world to discuss the role that technology plays. But right before, I have the pleasure to invite Andrew Saberton, the Deputy Executive Director of UNFPA, for some opening remarks. Mr. Saberton, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And I'll correct it as a Deputy Executive Director Management. I was just told to correct by. Good morning, everybody. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed speakers and participants at the Global Dialogue on Technology. It is my distinct honour to welcome you all to this session. Since yesterday, we gathered to explore the profound ways in which technological advancements are reshaping our societies and influencing the ICPD agenda on the ground and driving sustainable development. In recent years, technology has become a pivotal force in our globalised world, and that was a present theme in the previous dialogue we organised earlier this year in Benin on youth and in Bangladesh on demographic diversity and sustainable development. In both dialogues, with varied constituencies, it became clear that from healthcare innovations that extend life expectancy right through to digital platforms that connect people across continents, the transformative power of technology is evident. However, we cannot take the benefits for granted. It is crucial that we understand and manage these changes to ensure that technology contributes positively to the principles that guide the programme of action of the International Conference on Population and Development. We are particularly privileged today to arrive at this third global dialogue on the ICPD and to also discuss the insights from the 2 previous dialogues, as we collectively realise that it is not possible to discuss the future of human society without understanding and capturing the voices and aspirations of young people and how diverse demographic implications had been for each country in the world, and how implications for each country in the world. My apologies. The first global dialogue was a global meeting on youth, where young leaders from around the world came together to discuss the challenges and opportunities to materialise the ICPD vision, agreed on a comprehensive continuity youth action agenda. The document highlighted the need for policies that support entrepreneurship, and that is simply not possible without equitable access to technology for all young people and to a digital environment that protects their rights. The second ICPD30 Global Dialogue on Demographic Diversity and Sustainable Development brought together experts, policymakers and researchers to examine how shifts in population dynamics, such as ageing populations, urbanisation, climate change and migration patterns are influenced by and in turn influence sustainable development. One of the major takeaways from this conference was the importance of integrating technology into demographic planning to create sustainable and resilient communities. For instance, leveraging big data and AI can enhance urban planning, improve public health strategies, and ensure that ageing populations receive the care and support they need. Today, this is the second day of the first ever global dialogue on the impact of technology on the ICPD agenda. As we delve into these topics, let us consider the interconnectedness of technology, population and development. The role of technology is wide and is present in all sectors, advancing healthcare and education to its impact on employment and economic growth. We also need to address the digital divide and the ethical considerations of technological deployment, ensuring that our progress does not come at the expense of equity and justice. In closing, I encourage each of you to engage actively in today's sessions, to share your insights and collaborate on innovative solutions. Together we can harness the power of technology to foster inclusive development and build a future where all individuals can thrive. Thank you, and I hope the discussions can be insightful and productive for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So for a logistical note, so there is live interpretation today. We will have at least one speaker speaking in Spanish. So English will be channel 1. Arabic is channel 2, Chinese 3, French channel 4, Russian channel 5, and Spanish will be channel 6. So before we start, I wanted to introduce you to our panelists today. So we have 4 representatives from UNFPA, so regional teams. So first of all, Ms. Susana Sotoli, Regional Director from Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you so much for being with us. For the East and Southern Africa region, we have Mrs. Chinwe Ogbona. Thank you for being with us. From the Asia Pacific, Deputy Regional Director, Mr. Alexander Bodirosa. Thank you so much for being with us. And for Deputy Regional Director for the Arab States, Mr. Dominic Allen. Thank you for being with us as well. We also have with us today the President of the Institute of Geography and Statistics of Brazil, Mr. Marcio Postman. Thank you so much for being with us. And this morning, we will start with Ms. Monica Mosamat, who's Minister at the Permanent Mission of Bangladesh to the United Nations. Thank you for being with us. And I do want to start with you because your country just hosted a leg of the Global Dialogue on Technology. So could you just start off the discussion this morning and provide some insights from that discussion, what really stood out for you and that is relevant for today's discussion?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good morning, everyone. At the outset, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the co-hosts, the governments of Bahamas and Luxembourg, for organizing this dialogue, and UNFPA, of course, and also for the invitation. Indeed, we just had the Global Dialogue in Dhaka last month, and it was a success thanks to our co-hosts, Bulgaria, Japan, and UNFPA, and also to a very enlightened group of experts and participants who had an interesting, very fruitful discussions on demographic diversity and sustainable development. So the discussions were indeed rich on the current demographic trends and how they interplay with other global megatrends such as migration, urbanization, climate change, and even technological advancement, to name a few. And also to see how these confluences lead to diverse demographic realities in various parts of the world. To ensure that these diverse demographic realities are turned into opportunities, it is critical to have right policy interventions. And these policy interventions have to be people-centered, and they have to be respectful to human rights and gender equality, and also founded on the principles that are embedded in the ICPD program of action. So allow me to share some of the trends that were discussed in the dialogue. First of all, as I said, the demographic realities are diverse, and it varies from region to region. For example, in Europe, in some parts of Asia, there has been population decline, low fertility, which requires policy interventions in terms of social protection measures and labor mobilization. In Africa, on the other hand, there is demographic bulge, which requires investments in education, health, job creation in order to unlock the demographic dividend. Secondly, climate change is a factor that shapes demographic diversity all over the world. It is reshaping human habitats, threatening resources like water, food, dismantling health systems, leading to migration from rural to urban areas. And then also it is creating food insecurity. For example, in Bangladesh, the climate change-induced migration is causing unplanned urbanization and reducing our agricultural productivity. Thirdly, more than half of the world's population now live in urban settings. So urbanization itself is a major factor that is shaping demography. And the rapidity and the intensity of urbanization is so huge that it is outpacing the capacity of the governments to provide infrastructure, housing, and other facilities that are required. So in order to ensure that the cities are greener, there are less environmental footprints, it is critical to link urbanization with environmental trends and ensure that the advanced technologies are utilized to improve accessibility and service delivery, and digital equity is increased, and social inclusion is ensured. Fourthly, rapid demographic shifts have also outdated and outmoded the existing health structure in most of the countries. We know that at this point of time, approximately 4.5 billion people are not fully covered by essential health services, which is further exacerbated due to other issues like humanitarian emergencies, migration, aging, all these things. And aging itself is a major concern where public sectors are facing challenges to ensure protection. So just let me ensure social protection and health services. Just let me share some of the solutions that were also discussed at this point of time, since we are facing time constraints. So first of all, the urgent need for data was discussed, which is something related to use of technologies. And in order to ensure that the policies are evidence-based, we need data. For example, just one example, Bangladesh, and this data needs to be such that it can help governments to anticipate the trends and prepare accordingly. In Bangladesh, the economy is heavily dependent on remittances, which is sent by the migrant workers. So data can actually help anticipate when the country will face shortage of manpower eligible for out-migration, and then help the government to take remedial measures. Secondly, the technology also presents new opportunities to meet growing needs of populations, such as universal health coverage and health equity. Again, in Bangladesh, National Health Data Repository System, which is a digital system, is revolutionizing the health management by creating database. Similarly, data can help enhance the dignity of people who are in vulnerable condition. Another example I would give from the refugee situation in Cox's Bazar, where biometric database of the refugees have helped immensely the humanitarian agencies to provide humanitarian services. It can also help the people with disability. So basically, there are many other interesting concepts that were discussed and solutions that were presented. Due to shortage of time, I will perhaps end now and will return if there is any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. So just a reminder, so there will be a little bit of Spanish now, so if you need interpretation, there is material available at the back of the room, so you can go get some. So Minister, you talked about the importance of data, and I think somebody who knows quite a bit about data and technology is Mr. Poshman. So Mr. Poshman, could you talk a little bit about your experience in Brazil leveraging technology to help advance quality data?
Gracias. I wait the used. Excuse me. I will speak in English, in Spanish.
I think you can go and. I think you can go. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Agradezco a invitação e a oportunidade de ter este diálogo com todos, em especial a meus companheiros apresentadores. Me gustaría resaltar 3 aspectos relacionados con el tema de tecnología, población, en diálogo con el desafío de construir un presente y un futuro superior al mundo actual. El primeiro aspecto se relaciona com as novas possibilidades de contar e monitorar as estatísticas e as informações, especialmente por conta dos resultados tecnológicos em busca de um futuro de igualdade. Desde os censos demográficos realizados através da internet, os acompanhamentos de nascimentos, muertes e imigrações, que nos permite, incluso, acompanhar por georreferenciação satelital e telefonia móvel. A rapidez da informação é muito importante porque, no passado, os dados, especialmente dos censos demográficos, estava muito distante das necessidades atuais de tomadas de decisões em termos de políticas públicas. O segundo aspecto está relacionado com o processo de inflexão em la trajetória demográfica, como minha companheira de Bangladesh ha destacado. A taxa de expansão demográfica ha diminuído em alguns países. As repercussões sobre o envelhecimento são importantes, assim como a desigualdade e a esperança de vida, a medida por gênero, raça, nível de ingressos, educação e outros. É interessante conhecer as razões por que as mulheres têm menos filhos em muitos países. Se sabe que estão tendo menos filhos, mas não se sabe muito bem, em termos gerais, as razões. O terceiro aspecto reconhece que a força laboral do ano de 2050 já nasceu e está à espera de reformulação das políticas públicas em relação à educação, à saúde, ao trabalho em la era digital. Ao mesmo tempo, o tema de envelhecimento com qualidade de vida e a financiação de pensões e jubilação é grande desafio aos governos. É de interesse investigar como a população utiliza o tempo de sua vida com o impacto da era digital, especialmente com a juventude. Em definitivo, o desafio para as instituições produtoras de dados estatísticos de avançar hacia uma melhor difusão junto com as demandas da sociedade e das políticas públicas que permitam transformar a realidade presente e futuro. Não se pode apartar os dados estatísticos das instituições das demandas da sociedade, porque é importante para as políticas públicas, para a transformação da realidade, que os dados estejam à altura das necessidades dos governos e de los diferentes grupos da sociedade. Graças.
Thank you. So now I think is a good time to turn to Mrs. Sotoli, because you cover Latin America and the Caribbean. So you just listened to the minister, you just listened to Mr. Pushman. What do you see when you're listening to use of data and technology, but also overall, what are the opportunities of using technology when it comes to enhancing access to health services?
Thank you, Stephanie. And what a pleasure to be here with my colleagues from different regions, but also in this very different environment compared to yesterday. We are already in the future. Okay, so Latin America and the Caribbean, it's a region of contrasts. And particularly one feature defined the region, and it is that the whole region is highly unequal. Inequality among and within countries is really sort of the hallmark of the Latin American and Caribbean development. Those are deep-seated inequalities race-related, gender, geographically, income-related, etc. So from UNFPA, and that's why many issues discussed yesterday resonate very well with our region, UNFPA in Latin America is therefore trying to accelerate results, of course the ICPD agenda, focusing on those disparities, because progress in our region is not possible without addressing those disparities. And there you have technology as key to accelerate and doing what Marcio was describing, helping overcome distance in time. So you reduce distances, accelerate results in many cases through the use of technology. The first way we are working with this approach is focusing on data. And data, particularly, and I am not going to go into the details, Marcio describes perfectly well how the use of technology, mobile technology or geo-referential, geospatial technologies to collect data, even in those areas where there is no data, has meant in the region that even in countries such as Haiti, we were able, together with partners, to collect data useful to plan our responses and also, of course, for policy making. Technology has helped give a statistical visibility to those groups, particularly women, young people that are suffering because they probably have fallen through the cracks of policies. And the idea is use data to really shed light on those disparities. The second way we are using technology is to amplify access, particularly using technology to reduce distance, to reach people that are in remote areas through, again, a myriad of mobile technology. But the more than provide examples, I think that the concept is what is important here, that we use technology, but has to be very clear the intention, the programmatic, the policy intention. And in that regard is to reach people that are out of reach for services, but also to empower people through information, through creating some spaces for them, for instance, to engage in safe spaces or to report cases of violence or to get information regarding their own reproductive choices. And the third really important way we see technology is as a way to help people navigate a world of misinformation, which is not only in our region, but globally actually, really providing a very enabling environment for our agenda. This is probably the case in many countries, but the common people, my aunt, my neighbor, not only the people who understand what the ICPD agenda is, but really everyone needs to be also part of our audience. And we use technology, again, social media, but many other forms of technology to try to convey messages in a simple way so that we can have normal people, not just UN-related people, understanding that, for instance, gender is not an ideology, but actually can inform good economic policy, or it's at the basis of very normal issues such as protection of girls against premature pregnancies, etc. So then the last point, It's technology to address disparities, to help us reduce distance and time, to accelerate results, to empower people, and to really help amplify our agenda beyond our bubble, the usual suspects that understand our language, and try to really get beyond that to amplify our constituency and move forward towards what we ambition for girls and women in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sotoli. So to collect data where there is no data, and also to fight misinformation and disinformation. So I want to turn to Ms. Obona. I don't know if it's something that also resonates with your region, but also want to ask you, what are the opportunities that you see for your region?
Thank you very much. And also standing on the existing protocols that have been established for the morning and extending appreciation to the senior leadership in the room. For East and Southern Africa region, yesterday's conversations also resonated with our lived experiences. And this is because whilst Africa has 54 diverse countries, in East and Southern Africa, we have 23 diverse countries that contribute about a third of Africa's population and spans the spectrum of youthful population to countries that are beginning to experience onset of aging. Layered with that, emerging markets, developing economies, paradox of wealth and inequality, massive uptake of technology, innovation, and in that space, I just want to re-echo a lot of the reflections from yesterday. The first is that technology is and will remain a critical game changer. It will also remain an enabler. It will remain a positive or negative disruptor, depending on how we play it. And in Africa, the innovation and technology space is rapidly evolving, be it from internet users, but at the same time, there's the flip of the digital divide that has been had conversations yesterday, and the importance of paying attention to that. Another is around the areas that we discussed around health innovations. We're experiencing the use of drones in at least two of our countries, Madagascar and Botswana. One is a small island developing state, the other is an upper middle income country, to try and make sure that we reach underserved populations and areas where we have self-care as well for family planning, especially for adolescents, and HIV prevention, because the region continues to be an epicenter for HIV. Education and learning, there was a lot of conversations yesterday around generative AI. We're using that quite a lot in refreshers for midwifery training, as well as for comprehensive sexuality education for adolescents and young people in school and out of school. Similar to the conversations that have been held about the power of data and echoed here on the panel today, we're continuing to use satellite imagery, remote sensing, the digital censuses that are being undertaken on the continent to make sure that we're able to zone in with hotspot analysis, equity gap analysis, and make sure that we're able to reach populations left behind. Yesterday, there were conversations around tech and non-tech solutions. I think that for us in the region, we do see that intersectionality between innovation, technology, gender, and human rights. And that plays out in a lot of the either innovation hack labs or labs that are looking at non-tech solutions that reach young girls in remote areas, because we have spatial inequality as well. Communication, the power of communication across the continent is also very critical, and we're using that, the digital skills, digital literacy, both internally and externally. Another area that I haven't quite heard a lot that I'm hoping and looking forward, fast forward to today, is around financing. There's a lot of gap in financing. There were conversations yesterday about infrastructure and how we need to scale up infrastructure, but to do that, we require financing. ITU estimates how much it will require the world to be able to close that financing gap by 2030. And we do see that need, because in Africa, there's the digital transformation strategy of the African Union, and so a lot of the countries are looking at that. So I mentioned the digital divide. Around that is affordability. and financial inclusion and how we're able to do that. And then the last that I'd like to highlight is the highlight of my day yesterday. There was a little voice, there was a little baby in the room yesterday, and that would let out a shriek or a cry. And for me, it was a reminder, a human face to it, the fact that these are populations, present and future generations. It was like that baby was saying, don't leave me behind. Think about me as you're having these conversations in the room. So I think it's very critical for us to pay attention to that human face and to make sure that collectively that we're able to do what is needful, again, for present and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. We should always have a baby in the room, shouldn't we? It's a good reminder. Okay, so we talk about generative AI, drones, satellite imagery. So turning to Mr. Bodirosa, is that something that you're also looking into for your region?
Yeah, listen, let me just first allow Ms. Stephanie to reflect a little bit on yesterday. I mean, I personally learned a lot. It was really fascinating day. And you know, one thing that was really common, there was a lot of notion and talk about digital divide, but also we learned that despite all the progress and what technology, the good the technology is bringing, we see the technology also perpetuate gender inequality, that technology can also amplify harmful gender norms and toxic masculinity. Now, looking at the Asia-Pacific region, I mean, that's a region of extreme contrast. We have some of the stable democracy and countries that are going to the protracted crisis. We have some countries where they're advancing gender equality, and the countries where being a woman is a danger thing. Countries that are most dangerous place on the earth to be a woman. And then we have countries that are very advanced, technologically advanced, some of the richest country in the world, and some of the poorest countries in the world. So amazing contrast. And one thing that was particularly important for us in the Asia and Pacific regional office is to focus on technology-facilitated gender-based violence. The data is still not there. There is a gap, particularly in the least developed countries and the middle-income countries. So we partner with the Melbourne University to try to cover that gap. And if you allow me, I will just take 5 highlights of the research that was produced. When you are looking, everybody is vulnerable, everybody online, everybody using technology is vulnerable. But there are few categories that stand out. Adolescent girls and boys, women in the public sphere, politicians, prominent academics, celebrities, then gender minorities, LGBTQI, non-binary, refugees and migrants. So those are basically categories, the most vulnerable segment of population. Second highlight, if you are looking what types of gender-based, technology-facilitated gender-based violence we have. There are around 40 different types. But in Asia-Pacific, 6 of them are really, really prominent and dominate. Basically the image-based sexual abuse, then sexualized technology-facilitated harassment, technology-facilitated stalking, doxing, impersonation, and then finally, online child sexual exploitation. So those categories are very prevalent in the region. Issue of awareness. Again, the women are left behind. We have a gender digital divide, and we have disparities in gender literacy. And because of that, women have no access to information. They're not aware of gender-facilitated, gender-based, technology-facilitated gender-based violence, and they don't know how and when and where to ask for the help. When you're looking at the response side, the governance framework is not there. Legal framework is not available. Service providers are not capacitated enough. They don't know how to recognize gender-based, technology-facilitated gender-based violence. They don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking and dangerous, they don't know how to respond to that. And what is really striking they seem in many places to downplay the danger of women being exposed and women being vulnerable to that form of gender-based violence. Now, when we are when we are really looking what needs to be done, our regional office focuses on 4 pillars: advocacy, response, data, and then finally the addressing enabling environment. And in this context, we are working with ASEAN, partnering with them, having some joint initiatives, but also part of that work is regional launch of Gender Equity Alliance. And we are partnering with technological companies, basically advocating and asking them and basically our message to all of them is that technology has to be safe, confidential, secure for all by design and not as afterthought.
Thank you. And finally, turning to Mr. Allen, you're working in a region that also has issues of its own, but especially when it comes to emergency situations. I want to ask you specifically if, listening to conversations yesterday in terms of how can technology help when it comes to responses to those emergencies, basically on the ground.
Yeah. Good morning. Thanks, Stephanie. I think we were sitting this morning with a number of the delegates from the Arab states, from Bahrain, Egypt, Lebanon, Morocco, and just talking also about the richness within the Arab states region. But when you come to this question on the emergencies, I think there was 3 reflections that we made and I made from thinking through yesterday. I'm also right now transitioning out of being the representative for UNFPA in Palestine. And I found myself yesterday thinking about the realities from global to local, and that was the first reflection. So if I can take a low-tech solution, can everyone just close their eyes for a moment and travel with me to a few weeks ago when I was in Gaza, and I was sitting with Nada. And Nada is a mother, pregnant woman who's about to give birth. She's hungry, malnourished, thirsty, dehydrated, and scared. And when I think about the technology solutions that we were talking about yesterday, I think about Nada. And I would like us all to think about sitting in Gaza, sitting in a place of very insecurity and concerned about what the future holds for not only yourself in the coming hours and days, but the unborn baby that's going to be born into this world and what technology could do for them in the future. So as we go into today, that would be my first reflection and ask is, please keep Nada and her baby in your mind as we think through what the asks of there will be and how technology can play. So come back into the room. That was a low-tech virtual reality experiment. And I think that was the first reflection talking with the colleagues from yesterday as well, was to take it from global to local and think about all of those populations, because we were talking at high-tech, and I think that's the second reflection we had from yesterday was there's high-tech and there's low-tech. All tech is useful for all of the populations that we have. So when we think about some of the apps, so talking with the colleague from Morocco in our region who's developed an amazing app for persons with disabilities with how to promote access to sexual and reproductive health and services for GBV, and thinking through how that app can transform lives for the most vulnerable, for persons with autism and persons with disabilities, and seeing how that high-tech app can be applicable, but then low-tech, coming back again to when I think about the situation for women in Sudan right now. We have another huge crisis. Could you talk about, to think through the emergencies and how we can make those low-tech solutions for survivors of gender-based violence who are suffering horrific circumstances right now. We've got a program called Caring for Carers, connecting with those women's-led organizations at the local level who are suffering themselves and how to enable them to connect through a very simple technology called the telephone, and how that solidarity between women-led organizations who are providing frontline GBV services can be connected through technology at a low-tech solution. And we've got to remember that all tech can help bring solutions for the ICPD agenda. And the third, and I think final point, reflecting on yesterday, is that technology has been omnipresent. It's been there throughout time immemorial. So tech-enabled GBV, when we look at taking our time machine and go back to how the disparities and the inequalities that existed thousands of years ago, and thinking forward into the metaverse and how tech-enabled GBV is prevalent, I think we see technology as both a context and a shaper. And I think the advocacy that we heard from the colleagues yesterday, I was really inspired from that activism and that call for a recognition that gender and social norms have been present and inequalities have been present from thousands of years ago, and they will be there in the future unless we make changes today. And I think that again is another ask. Aside from keeping the local, keeping NADA in your mind as we go ahead into the many very interesting sessions for today, I think also remind us that gender and social norms are really important in terms of how then we think through technology and how it's developed today will shape into the future. So again, technology being both a context and a shaper for technology and how we will pursue the ICPD agenda for women and girls going forward. And that's both coming back to the point about the humanitarian and the emergencies, low tech, high tech, keeping local and keeping our affected populations at the forefront of our minds. And a reminder for us that not only that baby cry that Chinwe talked about yesterday, but also the women and girls who are in the most vulnerable parts of the world right now are looking for these conversations to shape their future for a positive outcome for them. Thank you.
Thank you. So this brings our opening session to a close. I want to thank all of our panelists and also Mr. Sabreton for your opening remarks. We will now go for an half-an-hour coffee break. I will be back for the closing session today. And thank you so much again.
Congratulations.
Obrigado.
Thank you very much. Couldn't realize when the time.